The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Hello.
GM.
What's up?
It's probably later for you now.
Not really. Hey, am I on an echo?
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right, hang on. I screwed with the setting. 1 second.
Fairly reasonable saying couple of days. Yeah, MoneroTopia is in a couple of days. There's no way you can be watching this show and not know. Yeah, it's a couple of days away, guys.
It just tripped up so fast. Also got a super chat from.
All right, how about now?
Here. Oh, I think you sound still a little bit echoey.
No, I can't hear you.
It's not too bad. Oh well, I hear myself now.
Crap. I was trying to fix a problem I had. I was having a problem with my cell phone. I'm on my cell phone. It seems to take and pop.
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not an echo.
Okay, I don't hear myself on an echo anymore, so.
Yeah.
But y'all can hear me like it sounds like it's on a loop or something?
No, it's fine. It's okay.
Okay, it should be back to default now. Sorry about that. Yeah. Not very good production quality. I should have done it before the show, but it didn't occur to me till afterwards. Anyways. All right, yeah, so how you guys doing?
Good. Yeah, we do have a super chat. Go ahead, Tux. What's this guy saying?
Safe and secure tip 50 cents. At this point, nobody trusts Bitcoin propaganda unless you are recently graduated of Moonboy University. Real administrative people and Bitcoin organizations, they know they are running a business helping some government agencies and corporate interests.
Very well said.
I have not graduated from the real Moonboy University, so.
Yeah, I'm a self-taught Moonboy. Did not go to the Moonboy school. Did my own studies. Did my own research.
But you're teaching us. We're in the school of body anarchists right now.
Well, the school of body says trust no one, question everything, including yourself.
The first and only lesson.
What were you going to say, Tux? I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you.
Oh, I just said the same thing. The anarchist school of body.
That's right. Yeah. So we got some good price action over this past week, and then we had a little bit of a pullback so far. Obviously, Bitcoin seems to be the coin that's benefiting, one of the most big beneficiaries here of the Trump win. So. Yeah, I mean, we kind of expected the Trump win as well. So I guess, if y'all are ready, we can just jump right in here into the price. Okay, so we're looking here at the...
Go for it, man. Do we have any hope of reaching any of our predictions? Is anybody anywhere close?
Maybe if Trump says the word Monero, that could help.
I guess it depends what phrase he's using.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and ban Monero.
I like how everything pumped except for Monero, and Monero didn't even get its delayed pump that tends to happen sometimes. It went up just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like here on Thursday, so a couple days later, after the election, we had, to call this a pump, that would be a liberal usage of the word pump and not in the political sense, just in the linguistic sense. What do we get? 7%? A measly 7% of pump for ants. But we're still in the same range. I mean, why should Monero pump on the Trump election, right? Like, it makes sense. He's the Bitcoin president, allegedly. It's not even allegedly. Like, the government, in my mind, Bitcoin and Tether and the government and what we're seeing with Argentina and what's happened with the Saudis and them not renewing the petrodollar, it all ties together, right? There's this need to continue the United States dollar by hook or by crook, to continue that United States dollar dominance as much as they can. And Tether has extended that dominance and covered for the bond demand shortfall across the world to a significant degree. And it's also gotten the United States dollar into Russia, into China, into Southeast Asia, into Latin America. I mean, Tether is across the world, and they're worth, I haven't checked lately, but I think it's like $120 billion, right? That's their market cap. And it used to be the case that they probably were backed by, hopes and promises and dreams and jack and shit But I think the reality is that they're worth what they claim they're worth now. The United States dollar, or the United States has, in one way or another, gotten Tether to play along. And then, of course, we've seen Blockstream, we've seen Adam Back, we've seen all of these guys directly supporting and interfacing with Tether. You know, you've got the worst of the scumbag maximalist, Max Kaiser, for example. I mean, he's one of the absolute worst, and he is a Tether shill to the core, right? And then they got Tether into El Salvador. So, I mean, in my mind, it's just a very clear strategy that they've made now, and it's a brilliant strategy, right? So they've got Bitcoin now integrated into the U.S. government. You know, I think it's just a way of hedging their bets. So we've got Bitcoin is being supported by the government. That's why the mining is constantly happening at a loss, and it probably will continue to happen at a loss, simply because being integrated into that system means that they get loans, and that's printed money, right? That's money printed from nothing that gets handed to miners to spool up new mining farms. And so the hash rate continues to increase. And this is a means, I think, of the United States effectively trying to continue the dollar dominance, which is so ironic when Bitcoin was supposed to be there to challenge the United States dollar dominance. And instead, it's only helping to extend it at this point. And they have just voluntarily sucked off Tether and supported Tether in every way possible. So it's a little bit of side rant there, but it's highly relevant, you know, to the environment we find ourselves in the context of a market. So in terms of our little gentleman's non-bet right here, it looks like I'm going to be the winner unless something major happens. But I take no joy or solace or consolation in winning this bet. But you know, it is what it is. It's not like this is a surprise to any of us. Maybe, you know, I mean, there's still the possibility, right, that we could see this thing drift towards the upside, right? I mean, there's no reason why we can't occupy this zone. And hey, for all we know, maybe we get, you know, a Thursday pump or something. Maybe we get a Saturday pump, and perhaps Tux becomes the winner. Maybe we'll have to play by Price is Right rules, being the closest without going over. So, which, you know, I just made that up right now, so we could have any rule set that we wanted. But that would actually probably be best for Tux, I think. Price is Right rules would actually benefit Tux the most.
It would benefit me, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you know, maybe we'll, how about we say winner buys a drink? It's easy for me to say since I'm looking like the winner, the winner at the moment. We'll say winner buys a drink. Okay, yeah, so we got the Bitcoin Monero chart now in front of us, and this chart is unfortunate, you know, but we also talked about this last week. We said, hey, at this point, you know, with this candle, I mean, even before that candle, like I wanted to be hopeful and think that we could come back here. Obviously, you know, that's not what happened. Like we talked about, classic wave magic action had us tag some key levels on the standard deviation clusters, and then we need to tag this back down here and establish it as kind of a baseline. Although one thing that we should take some consolation in here is that this is sort of a pre-bull market. This is a bit of a pre-bull market fall by Monero. And having established a pattern this broad, this big, this low, this early on is maybe kind of a good thing for the chart dynamics in a way that says, okay, once the bull market starts kicking off, we've effectively established a pretty nice bottom with Bitcoin in combination with a fundamental event. Again, you know, matching up those fundamental events with the TA events are always more powerful than either one taken solo. So we have the fundamental event of the delisting that caused this, the Binance delisting. And then we have the chart pattern, which is setting up, which at the moment, you wouldn't say that this chart pattern is most certainly a bottoming pattern, right? Charts can definitely happen like this and then ride this area and then fail lower. That's something that can happen on this chart. So I would say in terms of what this chart is going to do long term on the pure basis of the chart of the wave magic analysis, it's not really telling us up or down as of yet. But one thing that we do know is that this should act as a support level at some point, and we should at least get some kind of reaction bounce to the top side before the chart decides to go one way or the other. And in fact, before the chart does go one way or the other, what we're more likely to see is some kind of stabilization, right? We're more likely to get a boring times here where the volatility drops and then eventually the chart decides to break one way or another. That's typically how price dynamics move in general. You know, there was before I forget, someone had a comment here on the XMR chat, and I wrote it down. It was called A Question for Body. He tipped 17 cents. I believe that you believe an exogenous event to the downside is coming. Can you sort of explain this reasoning again? uninverting of the yield curve, or are we trying to extrapolate that from history? What I'm going on here is more of an extrapolation from history. I'm not looking at any particular fundamental events, exogenous events that we expect to cause a major crash. When the conditions set up right for the market, and again, this is sort of, it's not really extrapolation from history, right? But extrapolation into the future on the basis of patterns we've seen from history. We'll talk about the macro in a second, we always do, but those macro signs effectively are all triggering, saying, hey, a crash is coming, some kind of big unwind deleveraging event is coming. It's close. We don't know exactly when, right? Because there's sort of this time window that it could happen in terms of just the history of when you would expect to see it. So it's not so much that any particular exogenous event needs to happen. It's that once the powder keg has been set and you're welding nearby, probably a spark is going to hit that powder keg. And it could be Iran. It could be, I don't know, it could be anything, right? Like there's any number. It could be a false flag, cyber attack. It could be a coronal mass ejection from the sun, for all we know. But it just makes it more and more likely that smaller events could be the trigger that sets things off. So hopefully that answers that question. Shortwave, he said XMR is not pumping because I sell items on XMR Bazaar at 365 SMA, so price is stabilizing. Well, Shortwave, I believe you've probably got the volume to make that happen. Everybody bow and cower before the high volume of Shortwave on XMR Bazaar. Bro, why are you preventing our price from pumping? Come on, man, please. Can we have some more? Can you just like tick your prices up slightly higher so we can go up? No, I'm just playing, bro. Just playing.
Please. Shortwave.
Let's see here. At this point, no. Okay, we already got that one. Okay, XMR versus gold. Same story. Nothing has changed here in this regard. We're basically losing volatility, and we are constrained by the lower standard deviation clusters. And then at the next point, we would be constrained by is that moving average cluster. So I mean, this is the zone that you would just expect XMR to continue in relative to gold. And then we can also take a look here like we did last week. So this is Monero divided by total 3. Total 3 is the total market cap of cryptocurrency minus Bitcoin minus Ethereum, right? So you got mommy and daddy, take them out of the equation. And then we're left with what are colloquially, lovably known as the shitcoins. And so we got Monero here playing against the rest of the shitcoins. And we're basically trying to hold our own. I wouldn't say this looks like a super optimistic chart in the short term. Basically riding those lower standard deviation clusters. There is definitely room that this chart could find its way back to this level. And that would be unsurprising, right? If we have a bull market coming up here, minus some crash or whatever, crash recovery, something like that, you're going to see a lot of money move into shitcoins, and they're not going to care as much about Monero. You'll see these counters, cyclical rotations into and out of Monero. That probably happens in part because of some of the people in the cabal that are maybe wanting to hide, obfuscate their funds, or perhaps people that are not in the cabal and especially want to hide and obfuscate their funds as they move in and out of various shitcoins and the kinds of things that they're doing. So yeah, I haven't really scrutinized this chart. I don't want to say too much about it, but that's what it looks like. From there, we can go ahead and take a look at our privacy coins. Which the privacy coins didn't do too much at all this week. Like Monero, there's one privacy coin in particular that actually did something, and I think it's telling. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, we're looking here at Xano. Xano has put on a new all-time high as of the past few days, eked out another, how many percentage would that be? Looks to me like about 5%. Wow, this chart is actually so bullish that that even small movements like that are 5%. Like that's just kind of a blip. And that's because this chart has already gone up to the tune of like 300, 400% almost, 350%. So yeah, this thing, I mean, Xano's going to pump if the broad bull market breaks out. Let me say that again. Xano's going to pump if the broad bull market breaks out again. I didn't mean to alliterate so much, but there you go. Yeah, so, Xano, again, we've talked about that. It's definitely a play. FIRO still like contending with this sort of constraining volatility action here. Probably at some point it will break out too. I don't know if there's any FIRO holders here, hodlers. At the moment, I wouldn't consider that really one trade to one direction or the other. Zcash, on the other hand, managed to break out pretty well. I guess Zcash likes Trump as well. I can't even imagine why that might be, this corporate coin that is loved so much by the likes of DCG and Barry Silbert. But Zcash did pump. It was the only privacy coin that pumped on the election and with Bitcoin. So, make of that what you will. Obviously, my conspiratorial inclinations will tend to interpret that in one particular direction that I think you guys can already ascertain. okay, so we got Bitcoin now. Bitcoin is the god market of crypto, and this thing pumped up towards the upside. We had talked about for the past week or so, I think 2 weeks running, and I said, I like the technical analysis on this. I like the wave magic action. It looks good. I was like, do I have a fundamental reason, for saying buy Bitcoin right now? And I was like, I don't know. But I was a retard because obviously I've been saying Trump's going to be elected. Like, that was not really a question in my mind. He was going to be elected, whether it was going to be, a contested election that was tried to be stolen and eventually they won it in the courts, or it was just outright. But anyways, like, he's obviously the Bitcoin president, supposedly. And so, of course, he's crypto friendly, crypto burgers and all that. So, of course, the fundamental thing there was that the election was going to happen, clarity was going to happen, and then Bitcoin was going to pump on the anticipation of more friendly crypto environments, and obviously a specifically friendly Bitcoin environment. So, that was kind of I don't know what brain fart I had last week, but it's like, obviously, duh, bro. Like, especially with the chart, like I was talking about, the chart was setting up in a nice, technically bullish pattern here. So, where this thing goes right now, I've got my suspicions on, what could be coming here in the future for crash. But bros, remember, we've talked about this. What happened before the 2019 flatline of the economy, right? When we caught an economic cold back in 2020, the market pumped to all hell before it actually crashed, right? So like, there was this massive pump above trend and then it crashed. So, and I think we even have talked about this a little bit, that it would be unsurprising for Bitcoin to actually pump and put on new all-time highs and come to some sort of topside before, maybe a major crash takes it down to some level here. But that would be the last time. Like, for example, if that happened, like, again, hypothetically, if it happened that Bitcoin maybe pumped to some very obvious wave magic levels right here, maybe the 90, 100,000 level, and then we had some sort of, crisis event, monetary, whatever, and the markets crashed, we would see it crash back down here to the 40,000 or hell, even to the $35,000 level, tagging some like major level, perhaps tagging the regression analysis lower boundary. But that would be the last time. Like, that would be the last time Bitcoin would ever visit at that level, and it would be the obvious, most easy trade you ever made in your life. Sell your house, take leverage, whatever, doesn't matter. Mortgage your kidney if you need to. And get into Bitcoin, right? Like, buy, just buy, and then obviously take profit early. When you go on leverage, you take profit early and you take profit often, much like you do with voting, whenever you are able to. So, because you gotta make sure that you hang on to those gains. It doesn't matter. Like, typically, it doesn't matter if you think you're confident. If you've got to win on a leverage trade, you typically need to take that. And you take that profit. There are rare moments where you'll let them ride, and perhaps the beginning of a bull market is one of those rare moments you might let it ride. But other than that, just as a general frame of reference, if you're on leverage and you make a good trade, don't be afraid to take profit, and never let yourself get below the losing point if you have made it into profit. Okay, let's take a look at the OG degen boomer shitcoins, and minus obviously the one in red here. So we got Dog. Dog has actually been one of the big winners here, because it had its pump, and then it had another pump, and then it had yet another pump again, right? So Dog has been doing pretty good. Obviously, with the Musk support of the new president, commander in chief. Musk is the Doge father, as we all know, and so the Doge father has led his not sheep but puppies into financial bliss by promoting the dog coin. Okay, good for them, whatever. And then we also got Link. Link was another big performer. In fact, there was quite a few big performers. Sol, Link, and obviously Bitcoin seems to be the biggest winners of them all. This makes sense. A lot of stuff that I said about ETH, maybe it's time for me to start pivoting to Sol, because Sol is the headliner, place where the degenerate shitcoin stuff, meme coins, etc. happens. I feel like maybe I did you guys a little bit wrong by not talking that up a little bit earlier on. And probably that's something I should have identified a little bit sooner, but hey, I won't apologize for not telling you guys everything. Hit me with the super chat and be like, Sol, bro, Sol. Just kidding. We didn't have any XMR chats back then. Okay, actually, let's check. JJ tipped 0.0015 Monero, and he says, Monero for president. We could just go write him in. Him, or is it a her? It's probably a him. It's most of us are guys here.
I said I would write in Monero-chan on Twitter.
Oh, you did? Monero-chan for president. The first female president. And AI at the same time. I saw this headline where, I think it was South Carolina, back in 2020, literally 9% wrote in. No, sorry, not wrote in. There was a candidate that had registered under a legal name of D's Nuts, like literally D's Nuts. And that person got, that was 9% of the vote. Was that you? Did you go? I know you're from Carolina, North Carolina, I believe. You're from North Carolina,
I remember hearing about that somewhere, and I think it was during 2016. And then you had other stuff in 2020. I don't remember what it was.
You're right. Sorry, 2016. That was fake news. I misreported that just now.
You always have I don't know if this is true, but apparently there's a certain percentage of votes casted that were write-ins for Hawk Tua. Baseballing right now.
I would take Hawk Tua girl over Trump, though. I mean, not that it really probably matters that much, but okay. So yeah, the last thing I think we left off is I was trying to talk to you about the US dollar peso, because obviously, in 2 to 4 days, within the next week, we've got everyone coming down to Mexico. So you'll be happy to know that the peso has actually done a recovery here. We're sitting at about $20, spiked up here to the 20.7 level. And again, I just kind of want to continue shilling, I guess, my own creation here. But the power of wave magic, you'll see this wick. That little guy topped out at exactly a spot that you would expect to, right? This zone right here would be the place you would look for that wick to top out at its first opportunity, or the first attempt that it would have to getting to that level. So if we take a little bit of a longer look, and I actually think we do have people here that are in Mexico. So the peso versus the dollar is somewhat of a relevant topic in general, I think, for MoneroTopia. So effectively, the dollar had pumped significantly on the when the economy caught a cold back in 2020, and so it actually went up all the way to 25, almost $26, which is about the same level that Aaron was saying that he expected. That the peso is going to lose value to the tune of about 25-1 on the exchange ratio. But then after that whole thing calmed down, you get this sort of long period of just like calm consolidation. And then Mexico, actually, their central bank increased their rates to like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. Like loans here were extremely expensive, and they still are extremely expensive. So a lot of people were actually going into the peso to get 10% interest on the bonds. So you saw this massive drop off. Ultimately all the way down to 16-1. And so there's been recovery on that ever since the Mexican election. So it's weird because the same party won, right? But maybe Sheinbaum is just extra more socialist than AMLO, which came before. So, but anyways, as someone that has some banking money, I do kind of like to see this a little bit because it gives me more value on that. Although, I try to switch back and forth at opportune moments. So, like before this crash happened, I kind of got lucky and put some US dollar cash into pesos, right? Because since I live in Mexico, it's useful to be able to transact in pesos. And weird enough, a lot of, in some instances, your card won't work here. Like your US card, I found it not to work. Typically for like Uber and Uber Eats, they were like, no, we won't accept your American card in Mexico anymore. So I had to give them a Mexican card, which was weird because I think for like tourists it still works. Who knows, whatever, enshittification, et cetera. Anyways, the point is that, this is doing pretty good. I would expect that, as Aaron said, I'm kind of in agreement with him. I would expect to start trying to move towards the top of this area here. I wouldn't necessarily say that's going to happen in the immediate term, but it certainly could happen in the immediate term. But overall, the US dollar is going to probably look pretty good against the peso. This will especially be true if there is some kind of crash event, coming in the future. We'll probably get some massive spike up. And in fact, if there is a significant crash, I will probably look for the opportunity to dump all the rest of my banking US dollars and pesos, on some major spike up to the 25 area if it happens again. You're just getting free money there. And believe it or not, guys, part of one good reason to actually move your money, if you have a dual residency, dual citizenship thing going on with 2 different bank accounts in 2 different jurisdictions, when you move money into one currency versus the other, and if you happen to catch a gain on that, it's not taxable. Your gains on currency swaps are not taxable. Now, if you're doing leverage trading, probably, again, I don't really know tax law, but I think if you're doing leverage trading, they're going to be like, no, that's a profession. You're trading, you're gambling, whatever, you owe taxes on those gains. But when you're just moving money from one bank to another into different currencies, yes, you're going to pay like 0.5% to make that move. But no, you don't get, you don't have to pay taxes when you swap back to the other currency, even if you have a gain. And that makes sense because you don't tax currency. That's the whole point of being the declared, what do they call it? Not reserve currency, but the declared fiat or whatever. legal tender. That's like part of being the declared legal tender. And the point is that no, there are no capital gains taxes on the legal tender itself or in between other legal tenders. So there's a little bit of trivia for you guys today. Let's take a look at the gold price, like the Monero Nodo, which is very gold coin good. So yeah, this thing is I don't know, I guess gold has had some problems ever since the election. It's like, yeah, I don't know, Trump is here, even though the Trump is supposed to be the gold president, maybe he's the digital gold president now, and so nobody cares about the real gold anymore. They just care about the digital gold, supposedly, as it's called, which is, there's some good comparisons to be made, and then there's some not good comparisons to be made there in terms of, you know, whether Bitcoin is actually digital gold or not. But anyways, yeah, gold has had a little bit of a pullback here. I mean, we're still talking like, you know, within throwing distance, within spitting distance of the all-time high, 3%. You know, I guess we'll have to see. One thing that should catch your eye is that how close, sorry, not there, is that we've been riding up these purple bands, right, for a while now. And that is classic bull market wave magic action, but that doesn't mean that it can never pull back, right? That doesn't mean that that we'll never see a pullback. So let's take a look at the weekly candles and we'll see a little bit more clearly the very, very top of this purple bands here. Of these guys. And yeah, we would still have a ways to get to that level. I feel like at this point, price should be attracted to that level, but on the broader sense, again, the prime standard deviations, or really I should say the prime moving standard deviations, but Jesus, that's a mouthful. That's a mouthful. We might need to come back here, and you can see these clusters right here, this clustered band. Gold might need to come back down here, test that for a moment before coming back up. It is a very, very nice, good sign that we have seen the weekly close, and I believe a monthly close now. Yeah, that happened above this crazy long-term chart, right? And we talked about this chart since 1980. You just connect the two lines, just basic pleb lines, but those basic pleb lines function because they're so huge and easy and obvious for everybody to draw that everybody's looking at them. So it gives them a kind of power beyond ordinary pleb lines, which are often more dubious. So, but yeah, the fact that we pumped and closed a month above the rising wedge right here is a really, really good sign. If this next month of November closes above again as well, like, I mean, just definitely look out for gold to really start making moves to the upside. But that'll be amidst a bullish, you know, scenario where everything is moving to the upside, right? So, I mean, it's, you know, the goal in inflation is to have the assets that go up the most, not assets that only just go up. So gold keeps level with inflation, but you're not going to outperform risk assets. Maybe risk-adjusted outperformance it might, but you're not going to outperform risk assets in gold in a broader bull market. For a period of time, you might, but overall, long-term, you're not. Let's take a look at oil. We have a request from Mr. Anderson that we take a quick look at the oil chart. Yeah, so we're still basically sitting in the not quite ready to break down range, not quite broken down yet at the moment. We're still technically, you could call this in trend, depending on how you want to draw the lines. But again, you know, we're still like this, guys. This is one you could look at every day. If you see oil drop into this zone, that's probably a pretty good sign that we're getting close. So for now, again, we're not getting close. We're in the window that it could happen, right? Things could set us off, and the signs have all gone to that direction. But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to happen today. It could happen 4 or 5 months from now, right? Like my target window it still is from now, between now and inauguration, for some crash to happen. But that doesn't mean that it has to be then. But there still is a crash coming, at least from the historical trends of all the stuff that we've seen, right? So that's why we talk about bonds, right? We come over here, hey, bonds, you know, the Fed has already started lowering. Maybe it's a little bit early on the lowering rate. Like maybe it's a little bit premature to call it, right? So usually we see this kind of action, and then the bonds will do the same thing. And that's like usually a warning sign of the crash. So the Fed just lowered rates another quarter point on this past Thursday. I tried to listen to that press conference, but it's so boring. I can't do it anymore. I just don't have the patience to listen to Jerome Powell. He doesn't get the J Powell moniker anymore because he's just so fucking boring to listen to. So he will from now henceforth be known as Mr. Powell for my vernacular. Okay, to the reverse repos, we've got the same situation going on here. We're sitting about $1.5 billion left in the reverse repos. You know, again, if this thing goes to the downside, that could signal more stock market pumpage, right? That's $150 billion that could dump into risk assets, right? So that could happen. Risk assets like Tesla. Tesla had a nice big pump this week to the tune of about 30%. And for stock, you know, that's pretty good. So, I mean, Elon Musk placed his bets with Donald Trump, and the printing king, Donald Trump, that he printed more money than anyone in the history of history. Donald Trump printed in 2020. Yeah, I mean, that's stands to reason that Musk is going to be the recipient of some newly freshly printed cash, which he's used to, right? He's used to sucking on that government teat. So yeah, the S&P also pumped. In fact, we had this thing down there, right? Had a little bit of a pullback, and then the S&P pumped 5%. We are now sitting exactly at that line that we talked about, the like literally 100-year long line, like the line that started a century ago with the 1929, right? The big pump there. And that was actually the first big hoorah of the Federal Reserve, right? Because the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. The market kind of chopped sideways for a little bit, and then they printed tons and tons of money, and then that led to the blow off top there, and it took a long time for the economy to recover. But again, much like the gold chart, we place these very long-term lines, and this is a stupidly obvious line for everybody that's going to look at this. So it does give it some kind of power in a, again, in a sociological sense. It's not just the tea leaves. The tea leaves have power because you believe they have power. And if it's a strong enough tea leaf, probably it's not even tea at that point anymore. If it's strong enough, everyone's going to believe it. So we are now sitting at that exact spot on that line. We are like literally right there. It's funny how these lines will sometimes change as you change timeframes. You notice we went to the weekly, but if we go to the daily, it looks like we actually peaked above that line. So TradingView, I think this is just an artifact of the way they draw the charts. Maybe not. But I've noticed slight little changes when you go through different timeframes. It's probably something to be aware of if you're playing on TradingView charts, that this can happen. So I feel like that's a good spot to expect resistance, but this is the stock market we're talking about. The stock market's propped up even more than Bitcoin. So, and Bitcoin is now, obviously just totally. It's with them now, right? Like, and it's crazy how there wasn't a fight. There was no fight to be had over that. Like, there was a fake fight. Like, oh, we're going to try and be mean to you guys. And then, oh, but we won the day. They tried to war against Bitcoin, and now it's the milkshake. And please. Okay. I think that's about all we got here. Nothing else to talk about. Monero transactions actually took a little bit of a pump here. We went up all the way to 35,000 transactions this past week. That must have been Donald Trump moving his money into Monero since he's planning to be the crypto president, obviously, and his whole team was buying Monero. But they're buying in secret. They're like trying to keep the price down before they're loading their bags before we take off. Obviously, I'm being completely serious there. Okay, let's check the comments here, make sure that we didn't get anything. ETH pumping hard too. So Ethereal Garage said at 0.0015 XMR tipped. ETH pumping hard too. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum real quick. It did pump. Wow, that was a pretty nice pump actually. 27%. Yeah, that's actually way better than Bitcoin. We could take a look at the ETH versus BTC price as well. So funny enough, again, kind of got stopped out at these very, very long clusters of moving averages. It's really hard for you guys to see that, but also with the red lines here. So, that was kind of a spot, but this chart still looks bad. Like this chart could easily still get down to this area right here without even breaking a sweat. This could just be, a temporary move to the upside before it actually tags these lower lines. Sometimes charts don't do that entirely, right? Sometimes conditions just change and then charts just reverse before the obvious levels. But I don't tend to think that anyone's looking at clusters of moving standard deviations for their analysis. So, purely on a TA analysis, I would expect this chart to come down here to the 0.03 level. I would expect for Ethereum versus Bitcoin to hit that level before the bull market sets off, and then it recovers and then probably makes some other like mega pump. It'll probably outperform Bitcoin overall at some point, this bull market. But as we've talked about, like you really gotta wait for that dominance, for the clear bull market for a few monthly closes above, so that we really are in a bull market. It's amazing. Okay, let's go for the shitcoins now. That's just the psychology of how the thing happens, right? So at this moment, I don't think we've looked at the wave mech on the Bitcoin dominance for a long time now. But at this moment, this is kind of like your obvious target to try and hit that, and that would kind of even make sense on the timelines, right? Like let's suppose, forgetting for a second the possibility of a crash and what might happen with that, let's just suppose over the next few months this thing keeps trending towards the upside, makes some big spike, right? Rides here, and then everyone's convinced that the crypto bull is on, and then this thing just dumps to the downside. That would be historically kind of how it's happened in terms of the dynamics of Bitcoin versus alternative cryptocurrencies. Let's not use foul language on the stream, guys. Okay. But I don't think I have anything else for you guys. We pretty much covered it all here, covered everything necessary. Unless I'm seeing any questions, let's talk. Let's bring the viewers on stage.
Body man, what do you think the price of Monero will be when Monero transaction count is like averaging like 100,000 transactions a day?
Magic Crystal, tell us.
Inevitably the price has to be higher, right? Like there's got to be a very, very clear correlation between transaction count and
So it'd be a 4x in transaction volume. So we'll just say it's a 4x in price.
yeah. Okay.
Probably linear is not the
Simple
way to go
stuff.
with that. My thinking is that there's at some point the lack of real Monero out there on the exchanges and the supply constraint has to break, and that should cause a violent movement to the top side. And I think that's on purpose. Again, using violent moves are the way that markets can become partially controlled. And that there's a good reason why they try not to let the stock market have violent moves. And they always try to keep it going up and up and up, little by little, because it gives people confidence to buy the thing. Violent moves discourage confidence. But if Monero, I mean, we at least have to say that Monero is going to break this this rising resistance. Let's back out here to the monthly candles. Yeah, I mean, at a minimum, 4x in our daily transaction counts is going to imply quite a significant more amount of Monero purchase. It's not a linear relationship, so I was kind of just joking. At a minimum, you expect this to break and then probably something else. So let's just drop some lines. So let's go there and then move this line up to the top. I know it's not a straight line, but neither are we doing exactly perfect math here. That can't be right. $35,000. Okay, maybe. You know, Bitcoin when it was doing 200,000 transactions, maybe. I mean, the chart would say 35. I would be skeptical that it could get that far. I mean, yeah, that's. Let's just be calm and say $10,000. $10,000 Monero. Sorry, it was a very long-winded answer. Can't help myself.
No, that was great. That was a great answer, and obviously, not too shabby. 35. I'll take that. Wow, those will be the days, man. Monero, we're 100,000 transactions a day. Each Monero is worth 35. I think.
Bro, I'm extremely doubting that number. That can't be right. Like I refuse to believe that number cannot be right. Like I know I didn't
just imagine how amazing MoneroTopia will be by then. I mean, the conference will just be holy shit.
We're gonna have, I mean,
we'll be doing it on Mars.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'd like to do it in orbit before, Mars, at least, just as a trial run, but maybe we could hire either Elon or Jeff Bezos to take us into orbit for MoneroTopia.
Monero's got to be Doge. We got to be Doge to the moon. There's got to be like an outer space rate. Well, Bitcoin already has got the satellite, so they're winning right now. I think Monero should focus efforts towards trying to be the most advanced in outer space. A Monero Space Force. We're starting it today.
That would be hilarious if someone like organized a little conference in orbit for like 2 hours where like you got like, I don't know, 4 or 5 dudes or maybe girls or whatever, like anyone that's associated with some cryptocurrency. Like, hey, we're going into orbit. We're headed towards the stratosphere, guys. We're going to have a conference up in the stratosphere. And they just like made it happen. I mean, I know it would cost a few mil at least, right, to get that seat, but it would be awesome if they did that. Like if somebody did that.
Yeah, I do think unfortunately Doge would beat us. Elon
Doge is going to beat us to the moon.
Happen by the end of the day. Shit.
Did Musk actually?
I will never understand why Musk had to do that to humanity. Why did he become a Doge guy?
Man, that was the moment I said, "Wait a second, hang on."
It's like the worst one too.
Yeah, so annoying.
Yeah,
the guy who started Doge, that guy who started Doge, and he's still around. Oh my god, he must be kicking himself.
Musk was like, I'm talking to the Doge developers, and I'm talking to them about how we can expand capacity on the blockchain. And someone was like, and these developers, they're in the room with us now? Because Doge has no developers. Like, that's not... in some ways,
it's got to have developers right now, right? I don't know. It's how active is Doge right now? I haven't really checked in on the community.
I have no idea.
With all
it is a testament, though, to the strength of blockchain that there's so many of them. A lot of them with not great hash power. Pretty much all of them, almost all of them, never get actually 51% attacked. And they're all still around at these like low market caps, being run by a handful of nodes and servers across the world. Like that is kind of a testament to the strength of the technology, that it, even on like crappy implementations, still remain somewhat secure.
I mean, I told you guys, Doge was literally the first crypto I ever owned.
I think it was the first crypto I ever used, actually.
In
I remember
2013. Christmas Eve.
Okay,
I
that
tell the
was way
story all
before
the
me.
time.
I was like a baby. I was in the womb in 2013.
It was when Doge first came out, and I was like, I don't need to tell the whole story again. But
I
whatever.
purchased Bitwarden Premium using Doge directly from Binance.
Doing it.
That
all
was
the
my
right
first
ways.
crypto experience.
That's instructive,
But, yeah,
actually. Like, if I was smarter back in 2021, a buddy of mine was like, "Yeah, man, I don't really own any crypto. I was hoping to get some advice. Well, I own some Doge. I bought some Doge a couple months ago,
Right,
and that
like
was
everybody.
right before the bull market. I was like, Doge, what are you doing, bro? But he turned out to be right. And I, at the time, I just didn't understand that markets were composed of massive amounts of hype and fraud as well, and all of that stuff
Yep.
that just makes rationality not matter at certain moments.
Yes.
It should have been a signal. I ignored it.
And being a Monero person, it's like that dichotomy of rationality versus what the market actually is cannot be
It's
any greater.
totally like opposite, which is why Monero isn't our favorite pump coin, because it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Which is good for the cause ultimately, but it still would be.
But when
nice.
it does, when we
When
go
it
to
does, when it does.
100,000 transactions a day, we'll be at 35K.
We will forever have our hopium.
I mean, even if we were at, 10,000K, that would be huge, significant. Oh my God. And 100,000 transactions a day. I mean, 100,000 transactions a day does not seem that far away.
No, it doesn't.
You just need literally, I mean, it's exponential, right? Like we have all our users. When all our users bring in 3 more users each, I mean, you're at 100,000. Like, it's very, very easy for things to take off once you have like a base grassroots community that's like is using this thing, right? I don't know.
I can
Agreed.
say
That's my rationale.
I feel like it's going to be a little bit harder to justify the need to the plebs, and I mean like the crypto plebs, because they're like, well, now we have the crypto friendly president, and they're not going to attack crypto, so I don't need my privacy as much anymore. I can just
Yeah,
hold
I
soul.
was thinking that too. Like I was like slightly excited for a Harris win for Monero. Like, all right, dystopia, here we come, baby. but Trump had to step in and